Of those three, red herring, once we get it on the board here. A heron is a bird. Herring is a fish.
Herring. Well, heron kind of sounds like herring.
Yeah, but are they the same?
Heron's a fish, heron's a bird.
Well, you're wrong.
I can hear you.
All right, so red herring, much like non sequitur, and you can see non sequitur even kind of falls under it. It tends to be one of those umbrella terms. Anytime you are presenting any kind of quote unquote evidence or information that's meant to distract or divert attention away from the issue that's at hand, that would be red herring. So if you were a fan of mystery novels, Sherlock Holmes and all those kinds of things, within a mystery they'll talk about a red herring, which would be like a clue that's meant to take the detective or whoever's trying to solve the problem, kind of off the case a little bit. So if we were going to frame someone, that might be some red herring evidence. We're going to frame Grant. Emma would probably be the one to do it, so that we would get off her trail of evidence that she'd be leaving behind. So when we, the faulty emotional appeal example, that was, I think his name was Luke on our example, eating the sheep brains and Brussels sprouts. That would be red herring when you're going, you need to eat your vegetables because they're starving children all throughout the world. You're trying to distract attention away from the issue at hand, which is, I really just want you to eat your food because I'm a parent and I'm doing a power move, eat your food. Where you are bringing in this whole idea that there's starving people all over the place, therefore please eat it. So that's distracting the attention away from what's happening. And this would all certainly depend upon the situation. Like the ad hominem arguments that we were looking at yesterday, some of us would argue that that could be ad hominem, that we're trying to distract the attention away from his professional medical opinion. But since we're dealing with sensitive issues, and he could be, was guilty of statutory rape in 1960, maybe that is kind of part of the issue at hand with dealing with credibility of a person and whatnot. So there certainly can be some gray area, but if you are bringing in any kind of evidence that's meant to mislead or distract from that issue, it's going to be a red herring.
How would you distinguish between all of those on the bottom and
I would, so if, for the quiz that you would take, rather, say, let's go with the vegetable thing, okay? Jenna has to eat her vegetables because they're starving people all throughout. I would not have something like faulty emotional appeal and red herring on there because you could certainly put both of them down and be correct with it. If you, Addie wanting a headband because she thinks she'll play better as a basketball player would be non sequitur. There's no relationship between her wearing a headband and her being a better basketball player, but she wouldn't be trying to get me to wouldn't use it as a distractor to try to get me to buy a headband and not think about her being a terrible basketball player or something like that. She grabbed a lot of rebounds last night. It was good effort. If, like, say for example, there was some kind of propagandic photo out there, of a person being compared to Hitler, I would say that is going to be reductio ad Hitlerum. Now, if there's some other issue that they are trying to get you away from thinking about by doing that depiction, then at that point you can kind of go with red herring. I'm pretty sure though, like when we do a quiz or something, it would be pretty straightforward. When we do a midterm exam, which we do, around like week 9 or so, yeah, we're like halfway there. We'll have some open-ended questions on it where here are some statements identify logical fallacy. There could be a statement where Grant puts faulty emotional appeal, you put red herring, Ben could in theory put non sequitur, and all of you would have to receive credit for it because it would be a correct answer. So far as your explanation as to why it's red herring, non sequitur, faulty emotional appeal would all back up. It's like saying, well, that could be a metaphor, it could be an analogy, figurative language, all those things.
They win last time.
30 to 10. That was like affirmative, yes. I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Yep. And this was the team that beat us like early on in the year, and they were back at full strength.
So
They
you guys, you did some scheming a little bit.
yes. Circular reasoning. Circular reasoning works because circular reasoning works. Because circular reasoning works.
I bet you can't say it 5 minutes straight.
Probably can't. You know the best sentence in American language, in the English language, though. Buffalo, 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 and you can keep going on. You can use buffalo as a noun, as an adjective, as a verb. Yeah, to trick someone is to like buffalo them. You could say buffalo from the city of Buffalo, buffalo, other buffalo from the city of Buffalo. The legitimate sentence. Circular reasoning also is called begging the question. I try to maintain using circular reasoning. I might say begging the question every now and then, and you can kind of call me out on it. But you're assuming that the conclusion is true because the premise ends up not constituting evidence for that specific conclusion. So the argument ends up being it's true because it is true, so therefore it must be true. Ben is a bad kid because Ben does bad stuff. I think Ben stole my bike because Ben's the kind of kid who would steal my bike.
I agree.
That's also reasons.
If we take a look at a little interview happening here between our interviewer and Bill, interviewer going to Bill, your resume looks impressive, but I need another reference. Bill says, well, Jill can give me a good reference. Good, but how do I know that Jill is trustworthy? Well, Bill goes, I can certainly vouch for her. So essentially, what's Bill doing for himself?
Vouching for yourself.
Vouching for himself. I can vouch for my reference, who will vouch for me. So it's good. In a more practical sense, on those short answer essay tests that you have, like in history class or English class or whatever, when you need to have like 3 elements of support and you can only think of one specific example, Crystal's smiling, what do you start to do? You restate it 3 different ways so that it sounds like 3 separate examples. That would essentially kind of be a circular reasoning, be a little bit different, but you would be using that same idea over and over and over again. All right. Emma's a good student. How do you know that Emma's a good student? Well, only good students say CHS argumentation. So by her being present, which clearly is not a true statement. So by her, I didn't say specifically you. I just said that general thing. You can't say that I'm specifically a good student because I take a class that good students take. You will go to Ichiban. I don't know. I can't think of something to go off of it. What were you gonna say?
Does that mean I'm a good student?
Apparently. Emma can vouch for me. Skip video. Last one.
Just don't tell them what and they just sit awkwardly. It's like, where are you?
Equivocation. This is when you shift or change the definition of a key term. I would say generally it tends to be an unintentional thing, although it can be intentional. But in an extended argument, the meaning of a word shifts or changes. So really what you are arguing by the end of the statement or argument, if it's more than one statement, ends up being different than the idea that you originally brought up. First example, this would be hopefully more of an unintentional one. In our society, everyone needs to be literate. You would be surprised how many people in our society are so illiterate that they use the word like in every other sentence. In our society, everyone needs to be literate. What does it mean to be literate? You can read, write. What's happened by the end of the argument? We're talking about talking, which sounds a little awkward. It's not the fact that you just went from literate to illiterate, but it would be the idea that the meaning of the term illiteracy or literacy has shifted, probably unintentionally. If you were using a word that will have like multiple meanings, like something like ignorant, where you're talking about the lack of knowledge, but you're switching it to mean that a person is rude, that could be an example of equivocation. The example below, and I can raise this one up so we can see it a little bit better, is more of like, a play on words with equivocation. Nothing is better than steak. So by that statement, what are we essentially implying? Steak is the best. Okay, it is supreme. Hot dogs are better than nothing. I'd rather have a hot dog than than starve to death. So nothing is better than steak. Hot dogs are better than nothing. Hot dogs are better than steak.
All of a sudden, steak is what?
Transitive property.
Steak must be
Nothing better than steak. But hot dogs better than nothing. If nothing's better than steak and hot dogs are better than nothing, then hot dogs have to be better than steak.
property. That's actually kind of
Actually, and all beef hot dogs.
Which
And
Like
all
those
beef hot
weird
dogs
ones
are pretty good.
for lunch.
Addie wants to go to the new Brighton hot dog shop in like Cranberry all the time.
The place is so good.
Haven't been there yet.
You have
With some
No.
nachos.
Not a big hot dog.
But you get a free tattoo with your third hot dog, from what I hear. So, there you go.
Do we know it's, we know what it is?
Yeah.
We know it's in a hot dog?
So with equivocation, you'll see some things when it comes to like arguments. Shh, listen up. Say we're taking a look at legalization of marijuana. It's probably like one of those bigger topics that's been going around. You have medical marijuana, moving on to recreational marijuana. One of the arguments that people will say for it is marijuana is a natural substance.
Yep.
So, since it is a natural substance, it would be natural that we should use it. Or naturally, therefore, it would be appropriate. You're taking the word natural, you're going from we mean something from the environment to more of a therefore it would make sense that that should be something that would be legalized for recreational use and whatnot. I think commercials, if you were to look at, they'd probably do some equivocation. And again, it's more of like puns, words that have double meaning, where it kind of allows for a little bit of a connection. But the thing within the extended argument, you want to make sure that that connection has some logic, reasoning, and basis to it, as opposed to, hey, these working out of two different meanings. But yeah, I mean, you can use equivocation in kind of a sneaky little way, such as with the hot dog and steak kind of thing. Or hot dogs and steak.
Hot dog and steak.
I don't know, what would be? I've never had steak.
Steak
I don't think
tastes
You
good.
want a hot dog or you want a steak? Hot dog.
My dad, though.
So next Wednesday is when we're going to do the logical fallacy quiz. You have your definitions also on Google Classroom. At the top we have the note presentations, but if you scroll down underneath the websites, you have a thing that says Quizlet links. Notice your second Quizlet link right there is logical fallacies. So they're already uploaded on there. If you want to create your own, you certainly can. But you have access to that Quizlet link if you want to use it. And then other things that we'll use for later on in the year, eloquence, parliamentary procedure, will be there as well. All right? On a clean sheet of paper, you're not going to turn it into me, but on a clean sheet, give me a top 10. Helps if I would plug this in. Give me a top 10 of people, ideas, issues. Could be music, could be fashion related, could be whatever. Top 10 list of whatever you would associate with 2018, 2019 so far. So when you think of the last year, 2018, 2019, what would be like a top 10 of things that would be associated with this time? Doesn't mean it has to be exclusive to 2018, 2019. There could be some things that were still happening, in 2017 or back in the old days of 2015 that are current prevalent. But if we were to do this like 2 years ago, a fifth grader might say fidget spinners.
Dude, yes, that was actually
Last year at this time, Fortnite, number one. So,
Still
and
Fortnite.
again, you can
Fortnite's
still,
still on my list.
you can still put it on the list.
Is one being good? Yeah.
No, because I mean, if you want it to be, you can, because some of us will know what number one is, but others are going, I can't even think of one thing. So, no, I'm not going to go, this is what's your most important one.
Was fidget spinners really 2017?
That was
16 or 17.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you the story about?
Well, it was before that. I remember because Addie's in 5th grade. In 3rd grade was when they were banned. Could not bring them to elementary school. So they certainly
like
should have been going
A
on.
water bottle flipping or like
Yeah.
Pokemon Go or whatever. That was 2016.
There's no idea. People were aimlessly walking down the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you the story about how
It was like,
me,
oh,
Keith, and
this is-
Sam got accused of stealing a
You
big
won't.
No.
So we'll tell you that eventually. Sam will bring it up to you.
This is
I
great
do
idea.
too.
That's wired.
Something to think about.
Like Debbie LeVon. Debbie LeVon was somewhere cool.
Here, you're an adult now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, as soon as you get a tattoo, man, you're done.
Sorry, can I?
Have fans.
After school, we'll go get a haircut.
Go get it.
Last
Oh
year,
my
July of last year. Greatest artist of her time.
Who?
I honestly could not name 5 of his songs.
Who?
I quit singing.
X.
Band really is single time.
Alright, I'm done.
They're back to R. Kelly.
Chris Brown.
All right, it's not that you have to give me number ones on your list or whatnot, but what are some things that we have?
LeBron going to LA.
Okay. It's some.
Do it.
I don't even know. That was like.
This is July.
It's not on my list.
Yeah, it is.
The Mueller investigation.
It is like
Yeah, that was last.
It is.
it is man.
Mac Miller.
Oh, that's good.
Great.
Was that 2017 or 2018?
I don't know.
We need some positives.
I got it. I got the Parkland Manifesto.
Hi, Joel.
And then
Fire.
Kavanaugh trials.
Carrot.
It was like a hearing, not a trial.
What?
Despacito.
No, you're not right.
Despacito, that's a good one.
No, that was huge last year.
I don't know that one.
You don't know
It's
that Justin
ASMR.
Bieber song.
No, it's
I wasn't
not
even
okay.
putting
It's
this-
just
Play
a
it
song.
right now.
It's really dumb.
It's
Emma, you're really dumb.
So I can put dumb song.
Okay, yeah.
And you could just say
No.
generic.
Don't
has,
say
it
that,
has
do not
the
say
most
that.
views on YouTube of all time.
Okay.
So if you tell me that's not
Fine.
good, then
I'll give you
How,
that one.
how do I spell?
Despacito.
It Despacito.
Despacito.
What?
Wait, what was it?
Despacito.
P?
Despacito. Ask Addie what it is. She knows it. Justin
That's a
Bieber
good
was
one. No, I did fine.
Trump.
Pardon?
Trump.
Trump.
Just in general.
Yeah, he's done so much.
Wait, say that one, I'll say mine.
Okay.
Carrot.
Leave that in there.
Recently. This year? I thought about that. That's a good one.
Like
What was it?
Zach? Infinity War?
Oh, that was a big one.
Addie's been telling me now on Netflix because she never saw the end of
It
it.
is on Netflix.
She's like, we
The
can
end
watch
of
this.
it made me
I didn't
cry.
think
With Peter Parker
Whatever
guy,
you
it
said,
was
but-
No,
Mr.
no, no, no.
Snowman.
Shush, shush, shush.
That egg that broke the most liked picture on Instagram?
the
Oh yeah,
egg.
Times
It's
Square
the
fucking
egg.
fried egg.
The what?
IG.
The egg?
You don't know the egg.
Just put Instagram egg.
Okay.
IG. Draw the egg.
Someone just posted a picture of an egg and said, yeah, this is the most liked on Instagram. And then
It literally has 30 million.
It's
30 million.
52.
Really?
Patriots.
Stop.
That's what I said. I said Nick Foles. What
The
is
Steelers beat.
AirPods.
AirPod.
It's a good thing to have. You said AirPods.
ASMR.
I'm sorry?
ASMR.
AS.
MR.
What's that?
It's like when people like
I'm old, Carrick.
they make like weird. It's really popular. They're like videos where they make weird sounds that are supposed to be like satisfying, or people like whisper. It's really weird. Like they'll go to the microphone and go like this, and it's supposed to be like cool. I don't know.
Okay. I mean,
That's
sad.
sad.
Really sad.
What an environmental science guy.
Emma?
Can I say two?
No.
Say
Yes.
what?
I
Yes,
choose
give
that
it
kind
to
of
me.
And everybody
relates to
else
each
has
other.
to say too.
The right to deny service. Like
Okay.
the big controversy.
Okay.
That, and police
You mean
brutality.
like with Starbucks and
No,
or
with,
just
with like the bakery who like
Yeah.
denied making a gay wedding cake.
Mhm.
That happened like
Stuff
years
like
ago.
Okay.
That
Yeah, I
happened
also
last
saw
year.
No, the ruling came out.
And also police brutality against minorities.
I was gonna say.
On my list, I have like thank you next. So she has like police brutality.
Yeah, I have all those.
I'm gonna hate it
Somebody say
Fire.
football.
Yeah. Well, for police brutality, you could probably put down Black Lives Matter too.
Yeah.
And then I have New York abortion laws.
Yeah.
Hard me with the government section in the corner. The rest of us are like AirPods.
Also,
I thought it'd be wrong. They're trying to
There was.
If they engage with the
No more home button.
Great.
iPhone 10.
I'm sorry?
iPhone 10.
Okay.
Oh my gosh,
You're
Ray
six.
has one that's so cool.
Elon Musk.
Oh, you are
the first
Tesla in
space.
Oh my
I
god.
Julia?
That is
And it's
Someone's crying at home.
Oh, I didn't.
Crystal?
That also was it?
I'm sorry? Border wall?
There you go.
Someone's crying in the club.
I know, I was gonna say Crystal.
A few more. Carrot?
Hard pause.
That was not me.
Throwback.
It was beginning January 2018, man. Him and Logan Paul was Suicide Force.
Anti-vax moms.
Shane Dawson's conspiracy.
Oh yeah. I thought about that one. Oh, I know what you're talking
The
about.
secret
about
life of
vaccinations.
Jeffrey Star.
Yeah.
I started watching today.
I love it.
Zach? Dabbing?
Mr. Kane, can you dab for us?
Addie likes to dab.
Do it.
She's a dabber and a
Show
flosser.
us. Show us how she does it.
Not really.
Show us
Yeah,
how
it
she
was
does it.
like a Jake Paul versus KSI.
Oh, there was a boxing match that happened
Yeah.
On YouTube.
It was like the, I don't know, it was like the
Barstool
biggest.
Sports. That's a good one.
That is good.
It's like I think it was like the most concurrent viewers on live stream on YouTube.
And it was boxing match or
Yeah,
MMA?
boxing.
Boxing.
Oh, hey, last year's you and Pat became a professional sport.
Puerto Rico.
Oh yeah, they chased each other around the stage.
That is watch.
I've seen it.
And the Me Too movement.
I feel like Fortnite should be up there.
The thing about women.
Look at
Well,
that.
Fortnite's carried over from
Is that what your
2017
best
to
Fortnite is?
You're like,
What?
You know what's your best Fortnite is right in the
Don't Fortnite.
Come on.
Spell
There's
Fortnite.
30,000.
I have never played.
Or if you want to be
Now, for, let's see here.
I hated that.
All right.
Whoa.
So, yeah, see everything at least kind of on here. What from here, and there are obviously going to be things that kind of have crossover. So, Emma, you just said Me Too, Kavanaugh hearings, Virginia politics right now is a mess. So, like political scandal issues, things like that. You know, the way that we might want to judge political leaders is morality part of the job requirements and things like that. You know, we could certainly combine some things. What that is currently up here, would you look at as there's some kind of debatable issue that goes along with it? And explain what you are thinking about as to why it's debatable.
The Brett Kavanaugh hearings,
Okay?
just because it happened I don't know, like 30 years ago. Isn't it something like that?
It happened at a party.
Oh, you mean like for so far as like the events?
Yeah, you can't, like,
Because the Democratic Party held on to the case until
So like so we could get into a thing. Is there a statute of limitations when it comes to whether it be morality issues? You could also argue with crime and things like that. And unfortunately on the news, like this morning there was another. I forget where the priest was from. It was somewhere in western Pennsylvania. Was accused of sexual misconduct. That's something where I think a lot of folks off the top of their head go, there's not a statute of limitations does not apply. If that happened, you get punished for it. When it comes to other situations, Kavanaugh was young didn't realize what was happening, did it happen, all that kind of stuff, it gets to be a little bit murky. So even that whole idea, you know, how big of an issue our statute of limitations could be something that even kind of gets debated a little bit with it. Julia?
Can I give another one?
Yeah.
The health risks of drooling and the fact that people don't believe that it's actually dangerous.
Okay. And, you know, if like when I was in high school many moons ago,
There's just cigarettes.
you had a lot more cigarette smokers than you do now. You know, even than you did like 10, 15 years ago. And there's certainly been campaign, advertisement, awareness made that you don't want to do this. Where other behaviors, and not even getting to drooling, you know, other behaviors, because hasn't been that necessary awareness of it, those things still happen. So it'll be interesting to see years from now, is this a fad of like 2017, 18, 19, or does it go around, does it stick around a little bit? Ways to go about, you know, trying to handle it. How can you stop it?
I feel like a lot of things up there, like Juuls or Tide Pods, it's not like a debate because we know that it's bad. It's like we know that juuling is bad for you. We know that like eating a Tide Pod is probably not good for you. We're just like dumb and do it anyway. So that's not like a debate.
What about if like juuling should be like available in like recreational stores?
I know people.
Or like even something as simple as advertisements. You know, it's not debating. You know, like for like the who said the New York abortion laws was so. You know, it's not that people are debating. I mean, there always are going to be people debating whether or not abortion should be legal or not. For the most part, the debate isn't about is it legal to have an abortion, because it is. But when it gets to arguments as to when can it happen, is there a point at which it is no longer, you know, I don't want to say appropriate, depending upon what your viewpoints are, but is there a point, you know, which it does not happen anymore? Those are things that are debatable. With abortion, I don't think any state has passed it yet, but there have been several states that have looked at where if a person is going to have an abortion, they must have a sonogram on that day. And then it gets shown to you.
So they guilt trip you?
Yes.
That is not good.
So you can still have like, you know, debates about things that we wouldn't consider to be debatable when there's still some other layers to kind of go with it.
With the anti-vaccination,
Cigarette.
like the people who support anti-vaccination, like even though it's legal, like should it be legal to like refuse like that?
Well, and you know, and this would even kind of go with, you know, the whole thing about Juuls, you know, vaccinations. Does the government have the right to govern your well-being? You know, like a sugar tax and
I was gonna say marijuana legalization.
yeah. And
Because people could argue like whether it should only be medicinal or recreational.
I think we'll maybe start here tomorrow, making that whole and well-being idea.
I saw a mom who like tweeted and she was like, I need some advice. There's a measles
Have a good day.
outbreak where I live. Like, how can I protect my child? And somebody was like, well, get your kid vaccinated. And she was like, oh, I don't believe in vaccinations. And I was like, what do you expect? It was just so funny. Because everybody was like,